Hello Star Trek fans and welcome back to the channel and another Star Trek Fleet Commander video. In today's video we're going to take a look at what I consider to be the ultimate guide to raiding bases. Let's get on with it. So right off the bat I'll come out and say it, there are some excellent base raiding videos out there already, Rev Juice, No One Shall, and Sync Original to name a few, but this is my own personal take on base raiding and things that I've learned as I've gone through the game leveling up. And raiding bases for me falls into 6 easy steps. Part number 1 of finding a base to raid is, first of all, can you raid it? Is it within your level requirements? So at the moment I am level 24, which means I can raid a base as low as level 20 and all the way up to level 36, and in turn they can raid me. So make sure that you can raid the base. Obviously when you click on it, it will let you know. So that's almost hardly worth saying, but I'll put it out there because it is called the Ultimate Guide to Base Raiding. Step number 2. Does the base that you want to raid have any resources in it, or does it have enough resources to make it worth raiding? Now, I cannot count the amount of times that people from my own alliance and others have called out a base stating it's got millions of res, only to look at the base to find out that it's actually got nothing at all, it's empty. So here's a quick way to look to see if a base is worth raiding. I'm going to use an example here. So a base that I happen to know is dead is, where is it? This one here. So this level 25 I've had called out to me more than once that he's got no ships at home and he's got res. So on the face of it, he's got 1.2 million par, he's got nearly 200,000 tritanium and 18,000 dilithium. So on the face of it, you might think that that's worth raiding, but the reality is that base is entirely dead. There's nothing in it, and if you were to raid it, you'd get a nominal amount of res just for the sake of doing it, but it wouldn't be worth your time. And here's how to tell if a base is worth raiding. So one more time, we'll take a look at what he's got there. So remember that, so 1.2 million par, 200k tritanium and 18,000 dilithium. Now the quickest way to do that is to actually go into your own base. Now everything I'm about to say is based on the assumption that he is up to date with his research, which we know is not always the case, but it does sometimes happen that you find someone who's below, so you get an extra bonus payday, but always assume people are up to date with the res. So if you go into your own par steel warehouse and click on this details tab, you can see that a level 25 can have a maximum warehouse of 1.9 million. Now his protected, so his vault by default, again assuming he's up to date, is 800,000, and his research will be about 60-70%, which actually puts him in at about 1.2 million par steel, which is why you can't touch any of it. So although it looks like he's got a lot of res, it's not worth doing its raiding. If we go to our tritanium and have a look at a level 25 can have 700,000, again depending on his research. Level 25, 120,000 of that is protected, plus his research on top of that coming in at about 60-70% puts him at about 200,000 tritanium, which is why we can't touch any of that. Now here we go, as you can see, I'm actually a culprit of not being up to date with my research. So my dilithium, his dilithium can be 80,000, but his protected is 25,000, plus research on top of that means that that 18,000 in his base is untouchable. So if you're ever wondering how much res does someone have versus how much is protected, you can quickly flick back into your own base. Once you start to learn the numbers, once you've done it enough times, you start to remember them automatically. So now that we've found bases that we can raid in terms of level requirement, We know how to look for bases that have resources in them. Now we need to assess the base to see whether our ships can raid them or not. So let's go and have a look. Now I have pre-selected a couple of bases in case some go up, one of which is this level 22 base here. So we're going to scan the base. I'm going to have a look at what he's got. So he's got 712,000 par steel, which is probably protected at level 22, there might be some, and 23,000 dilithium. There might be some to be had, but what he definitely won't have protected is this 408,000 titanium, sorry. So, good example here. So this guy has got Kira, which is an excellent base defender. Now, what we're not so much interested in the total strength of 250,000, because it's a scary number which doesn't hold much resemblance. We've got to look at the ships in individuality. So this Kira has got 8,000 shield and 12,000 hull. Now he's not obviously up to date with his research on his interceptors, so that's quite a weak Kira. So if we compare my stats, so this top blue bar here, 119,000 shield, and then the bottom is 168,000, so we can easily wipe that Kira off the map. Oops, sorry, wrong button there. Scan again. Now we've got to look at his station. So his station, 20,000 shield and 20,000 hull. So again, it looks to be a little bit down on his station research, so it's actually going to be quite an easy hit for my North Star on this one. So let's send the North Star in and give him a quick knock. I fully expect to be able to one-shot this base. Now the term one-shot, if you're not familiar with it, means that you can take all of the ships and the station's defences down in one hit. It's not always the case. Sometimes you need 2 or 3, which is why we assess at the very beginning whether or not a base is worth raiding, because no point in raiding it if you lose more resources than you gain. So whilst that's on the way, actually I'll probably have to wait for that North Star because I'll need to send it home and I will need to repair it, and then I'll swap the officers around and I'll show you how to set up for a raid next, which is getting ahead of myself a bit there. So here we go. So we've got no P shield, so we're not going to lose anything there, and we're going to attack this station. Again, I don't expect to get destroyed. I didn't. You can see it took a good portion of my hull, which is why the Kira is an excellent base defender. If you have to leave one ship behind to defend your base, I would always leave that. So for our initial hit, we got almost nothing because, of course, the North Star has got the tiniest cargo hold known to man. But as you can see, we destroyed all of the ship and all of the station defenders. Sorry, all of the station defences. So we'll send that North Star home and we'll repair and we'll set up for phase 2 of the raid. So now that we've cranked the base, we need to make sure that the raiding ships we have, namely our envoys in this case, you may be raiding with other ships, are capable of raiding the base, because it's all very well cracking it, but if you can't take any resources out of it, you've kind of wasted your time. So as you can see, I'm just faffing about with my ships, but what I'm trying to show is that the station's defense stats were 20,300 hull and 20,300 shields. Now I happen to know that my envoys have got 38,000 hull and similar-ish shields, so they can easily take the station hull and defences once it's cracked and lift the res out of it. Now the best raiding crew in my opinion is Ston as captain, because he increases your cargo capacity. Of course different levels is different percentages. I believe it starts at about 50%. I also then have D'Amica because she brings you home faster when your cargo is full. And when I can find her in the list, we have Helvia because she gets you to a target, again, significantly faster depending on her level. I think it starts at level 50%, sorry, not level 50. I personally have her up to 125% faster because I've been able to level her up as I go along. Now, of course, you can only use what I consider to be optimum crew once, so for the rest of my ships I've just got a strong setup. Of course, getting to targets there and back only counts if you are not porting towards your target. For me, my own personal choice is if I'm not pulling more than 3 million resources, I will not port. I'll just stay where I am and I'll send my ships and I'll take all of the risks associated with that. Now, under normal circumstances, I would only send 2 envoys and I would leave 1 ship home to defend. At the moment, given my level, I would leave my Kira, but because the base is only next door and I'm going to be paying full attention to what I'm doing for the purposes of the video, I'm actually going to kit out 3 envoys to send to this base. It's a low risk maneuver for what I'm doing, so there's not too much worries. So let's pop that 3rd envoy on there. So here's the base we're looking to raid. Once again, let's have a check, see how long we've had to wait. So we raided him 5 minutes ago, so let's skip forward in time and see what happens next. So it's been 7 minutes since we raided this chap, so now it's time to move our envoys into position. Now, a common mistake that I see people making is they park all 3 envoys or 2 envoys or whatever raiding ships you have directly outside the target base. This is a bad idea for 3 reasons. The first one is, if this guy comes back online and he can repair a powerful ship, there's a good chance he can kill 1 or all of your envoys off the bat, in which case you've got a repair bill and you've got nothing out of it. The second reason is, if his allies are online, any one of those can fly across and destroy our ships, and same scenario, you are stuck repairing ships and you got absolutely nothing out of it. The third reason is that some of the lesser moraled players may either choose to steal from your raid in progress, so send a raiding ship, get a scoop of the resource which you've earned yourself. Alternatively, even worse, if they are more powerful than you and you're raiding a base with a lot of resources, they can steal it. So they park a Saladin, a Bortaz, a very powerful Kamari outside the base, and depending on what level you are, they've effectively stolen your raid. So don't advertise that you're going to raid a base by parking all of your ships directly outside of it. The best thing to do is either put your ships around the exterior of the map. In this example here, this is about as close as I would go. Alternatively, you can put your ships on mining nodes, so it looks like you're just mining. Now, ultimately speaking, people are going to see you raiding. That's a given. There's nothing you can do about that. But disguising it for as long as possible maximizes the chance that people won't interfere. So just 1 more minute until this guy reveals whether or not he is online. And our envoys are starting to arrive. Naturally, our optimal raiding crew has got there significantly faster than the other 2, because we've got the officer abilities which speed up there and back, and we're just waiting for the other 2 slow-ass envoys to arrive. If you just noticed at the top of the screen there, the guy's shield went down, so he's not online, so we will be raiding this base. And in terms of raiding the base itself, again, a lot of mistakes that people make, as well as parking their envoys directly outside for the first 10 minutes. Let's just assume they didn't do that. When the shield drops, again, they park all of their envoys directly outside, thus advertising that you're raiding the base. For me, I like to leave an 8-second gap between sending my envoys, again for several reasons. The first one is if the guy comes back online, I can easily recall the other 1 or 2 without putting them in harm's way. If someone comes to defend the raid in progress, I can then send my ships, and they're not all parked directly outside, so they're not easy pickings. And 3, 8 seconds is the amount of time it takes to raid the base, the animation, so the ships aren't tripping over each other and you're not frantically trying to click on the base and getting everything except the base. So we'll see this in practice in just a couple of seconds. So all 3 ships are here. We're going to send ship B first because it's our fastest, so attack. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And we send this one to attack, and again our count, I'm not going to do it because you know how to count to 8, and we can recall the first one. We can now send ship C, and as you can see none of these ships are tripping over each other and I'm not having trouble clicking on the base. So that one warps away, ship C raids. And then the click of a button, it's gone. Nice, efficient, neat, without too much fuss. We got 110,000 tritanium, which we knew. Not so much par steel and dilithium, but we expected that. We knew that when we raided the base. Again, 93,000 tritanium and pretty much nothing else. Again, we knew that. And then last but not least, 112,000 tritanium, even less par steel this time, and again a scoop of dilithium. That will cover our repair costs for these 3 envoys. So if we skip back to this base here, let's have a look what he's got left in his stores. So there's probably 1 more scoop, so I'll send 1 more envoy back to this station, which of course will be ship B, given it's the fastest one we have, and we will have completely emptied this base. So that concludes the raiding video, but here is some footage that I didn't end up using that perfectly exemplifies why you don't park all 3 envoys or any raiding ships directly outside the base that you're raiding. So I'll cut to the video here. Now last time I hid my ships around the edge. This time I'm going to demonstrate the other method, which is to hide my ships on nodes. So again, no activity to indicate that he's online. And once again, let's have a look at his resources. So he's level 20, so we're going to get a good chunk of par steel, and we're going to get something, a little bit of tritanium. We don't need either of those at the moment, but for the purposes of the video and demonstration purposes, it's a good target. Again, we don't go and park all 3 of our envoys directly outside of the base, because if we look, this guy's alliance is HSPN. And there's a lot of those guys around here. Any one of them, we've got to be careful of that Saladin. Yeah, oh shit, yeah, he could kick our ass. Which is the primary reason why we hide our ships, because if all 3 envoys were set outside, yeah, there you go, look, he's online. So we're not going to be able to hit this base, and his boss has come back. And with that Saladin, all 3 of our envoys would have been completely dead, which is why we don't park envoys outside the base that we're raiding. So we can now recall all of these ships safe and sound. And there you go, a perfect example of why we don't put envoys or raiding ships outside of the base that we're raiding. So one last time, let's recount the steps to the perfect base raid. Number 1, find a base within your level range. That's not really a choice, but you got to do it. Step number 2, make sure the base that you're going to raid has got resources that are worth it. Don't expend more than you're going to make. Step number 3, make sure you have a ship that can pierce any defending ships and destroy the station's defences. Step number 4, make sure your raiding ships are capable of raiding the station in question once it's been cracked. Step number 5, hide your raiding ships in the system so you don't make it obvious you're going to raid the station. And last but not least, number 6, leave spaces between your raiding ships so they don't end up tripping over each other's feet, so you can raid as quickly and as efficiently as possible. So that concludes today's video. If you think the video deserves it, drop a like. If you like the type of content that I make, feel free to subscribe to the channel. There will be more videos coming soon. But until next time, I will see you in space.